Switchports are a dime a dozen these days, but the really good ones are quite a bit rarer. New Super Lucky's Tale released just a few weeks ago, bringing a very diverse and energetic platform to a console where platformers reign supreme, which is quite the challenge to take on. Today we're lucky enough to have Dan Hurd, franchise director over on Lucky's Tale, here to tell us all about how the team at Playful made it all happen. Thanks so much for being here, Dan.
Sure, yeah, my pleasure.
Very excited to have you, but I do have a little bit of a bone to pick before we get into the nitty-gritty game development questions.
Pick the bone.
I used to be a dog person, and then I got a very sweet cat about a year ago. His name's Muffin. So I really wanted to know why you guys are adamant about having the cats be the villains in these games.
Well, I don't know. I just can't picture the dog. Here's the thing. This is a controversial statement. I just can't picture the dog trying to thwart. I mean, Lucky, put it this way. Lucky is basically one half dog and one half cat. Because that's basically what a fox is, right? You just
Sure.
one or two. I think that's how the science works. So let's just pretend it's not just the cats that are the villain, but they're also the hero in New Super Lucky.
I like that. Okay. We can continue with the interview. Sounds good. I guess just starting off first, congrats on making the game happen. Congrats on all the accolades. I beat the entire thing, had a ton of fun with it. What was the inspiration behind making new Super Lucky's Tale new again versus just porting the original game to Switch?
Well, we had a choice, and what we knew that we wanted to bring this game to the Switch, and we thought that it was just a perfect fit in terms of hardware and just the audience even. But when we really took a step back and we looked at that act of either just porting this game, really the team, myself included, everyone was just so passionate about pushing it even further, and we just felt like we weren't done yet, and so we wanted to keep pushing, folding in all this great feedback we've been getting, and we wanted to produce essentially the definitive edition of this game. And so that signed us up for essentially 2 more years of production on the game. And we, as a studio, Playful, we put forward up our own money to make that happen, because it was the team's passion to keep pushing this particular game, this IP, to make it the best it could possibly be, and that drove that decision. And that's actually what made it become New Super Lucky's Tale, is because we just put so much more new stuff into this. And in some ways, it's a completely different game. It's completely remade in many ways, because we've touched every level, we've touched the main character and just changed his moveset and done all those pieces. So it's just a labor of love, really.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I love when you can tell the passion is there, and clearly that's the case with your team. Plus, it's fun as a Switch fan when we do get so many ports of just, hey, it's the same game from years back. Here it is in its identical version. To have something that, hey, we fleshed this out for Switch is really, really cool. You guys have worked on a variety of systems with Lucky, Oculus, Xbox One X, and now Switch. Is that something that excites and energizes the team to always be working on the bold new platform?
Mm-hmm. That's very core to the way that we've looked at game development, even from our early days and when we were looking at the Oculus Rift. Those were very, very early days when we worked on the original Lucky's Tale, and that work even came out of just our exuberance of looking into that platform and saying, what can it do that hasn't been done before? And so that was an extremely interesting learning time for us. And one of the artifacts of that, one of our favorite prototypes, really turned into Lucky's Tale, just trying to figure out, what types of games could even work in this medium. And so later, moving on to the Xbox One X was a just completely different set of challenges for us. And the Switch, again, every time we make that leap, it's not arbitrary. Like, it is something that we have to evaluate really strongly. Is this worth our time and effort? Because it's going to take, we could be working on a new game right now. How do we want to handle this? How do we want to kind of look at what the hardware is really capable of delivering, and how can that lead to a better product at the end? It shouldn't feel arbitrary that we're just moving between platform to platform. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So like that comment you said earlier, like, it's neat that it's hitting the Switch and it's got all this additional work on top of that. that's just a very conscious choice on our part, because not only did we want to just move it to this platform, but we were trying to build upon what we think makes the platform so great. And we said, well, there's even the way that the progression works. We wanted it to feel like you had just these little bite-sized chunks. You could go off and you could play a little bit and you could come back. And so we focused on that, and we focused on what the Switch does really well. You can notice in the art style and the way the lighting works, we wanted it to just feel at home there. And similarly, we went through that process with the Xbox and with the Oculus Rift as well.
Awesome. Yeah. And given that it was a conscious choice to bring to Switch, I'm sure it was also in your conscious that you're entering the platform that is home to Mario and Donkey Kong and arguably the best platformers of all time. Was it daunting to bring Lucky into that arena, or how did the team sort of view going up against those platforming giants?
Well, it felt like coming home for us in a lot of ways. But when you do put a game out, specifically a platforming game, on a Nintendo platform, that's something that we didn't take very lightly. And what it did for us is it kind of set this bar that we felt like our quality level had to be try our hardest to run neck and neck with these like heavy hitters that are on the platform that people are, they associate with that device. So people look at Mario and say, wow, they use Nintendo through and through, and the Switch is the home of Mario after Odyssey, and so for us to make that leap, we knew that our game had to we just really had to bring that at a very high level, and we couldn't afford to put something that felt, well, it's a good idea and it's good in this way, but here's all these things that really weigh it down, and it certainly doesn't compare to the best of the genre that are on this existing platform that may even be installed on someone's Switch right now. So that for us was this driving force to keep pushing it more and more and more, and to focus more on control and visuals and preciseness and story and delight. Like that was this nice kind of underpinning of the whole thing. Like, well, if we're going to do this, then we know we all sign up for this amount of work.
Yeah. Was that scary, or was that exciting? Is that something that you woke up in the morning just so ready to go kick butt?
It's all those things. I mean, I think that's what game development is. It's simultaneously scary and exhilarating, and just the gamut of emotions, because you are doing something creative. You're creating something new and putting it in front of people and hoping that they have a really good time with it. And so all those pieces are connected. And but for us, the reason why we make games is also strongly connected to those emotions that we feel, especially once you release the game too, and you can see, wow, these people are genuinely enjoying this. They're talking about it. They're excited. They're showing their friends and family. That, of course, makes it worth it in the end. But the process itself is also exhilarating, but never far from intense.
Yeah, for sure. And with all those emotions and with all those different people that are experiencing the game, I'd say the Switch has a very diverse and wide audience. Like, you kind of know, at least early on, probably who was getting an Oculus Rift day one or who's getting an Xbox One X day one. But the Switch, it has such a wide range of demographics and ages. Did that also play into choosing Lucky for your foray onto the Switch, because he can appeal to such a wide range of gamers?
Definitely. The whole reason we wanted to make a game, why we even started this IP, was because we wanted to appeal to a wide range of gamers, and we wanted to give something for everyone. So, my fondest memories, and I know a lot of people share this, are when I open up a new piece of gaming hardware, just that moment of, how Mario and Duck Hunt was kind of connected to the original NES launch. That's the type of game I want to play. I just want to get lost in a fantasy world and explore the new hardware through that medium. And so for us, when we were working on this IP, we knew that forever we wanted to keep pushing and to open the audience wider and wider and wider. So when the opportunity came to bring it to the Switch, like I said earlier, it felt like coming home in that way, because I feel like that's the ultimate blend of hardware and player base who are craving this sort of entertainment, as we are. We want more platformers like this, because they're just such an elemental sort of fun that that you can play and get lost in and not feel. It's great after a day of work, right? It's like just so refreshing and fun. And so for us, that's what the Switch represented. Is this is home for Lucky, and so we want to do well by that.
Very cool. And digging a little deeper into the game dev side of things, to me, one of the most interesting aspects of New Super Lucky's Tale is how many different types of platforming it provides. Like, there's 2D, 3D, there's the auto runners. What was it like trying to bring polish, fun, and quality to all three different styles of platforming gameplay?
Yeah, it's a lot. There were some that we didn't even include because we couldn't get to that quality bar, which is great. Every game project is the same way, and you have all these ideas that you want to get to eventually, and so they form the seed of whatever comes next. But for us, we had a very wide open field of all these different game styles that we wanted to play with, and we knew that we wanted to provide a variety. That was a key for us. Is we don't want just these big open 3D levels, although we love them. We also want to kind of change the way that the player is participating in the game. And because we opened up the way that the game even progresses, we also wanted to allow players to play in their own way. So some people really get into the puzzles. And like, I love these, they give me this break and I can spend time and really try and figure it out. And some people are like, no, I never want to touch a puzzle again. And I only want to jump into these like 3D worlds and I want to spend my time there. And then some people are just all the above, please. And so for us, I don't think the challenge was different in polishing, like I say, a 2D level versus a 3D level, other than the way that Lucky interacts within that space is different. So a good example is like when Lucky attacks an enemy in a 2D world, the enemy will pop coins out like he always does. So earlier, like the coins, we had to go scramble and catch them all, but it didn't work really well in 2D context because they would fall off of the game plane. And so we kind of reimagined how that was supposed to work, and now they auto-collect no matter what, so if they fall off the edge of the screen, that's fine, you got them. And that's the type of polish that you look at when you start changing the way that the movement paradigm works, or the way that the stage presents itself. And then for the puzzle games, then it was all about, well, how do players perceive the puzzle? Are they getting it? Is it making sense? Is it super frustrating, or is it way too easy? And trying to find the balance there, but the mechanics were polished pretty quickly. There was only a very limited set of interactions, so it was very different across all the different gameplay types. But I think when you're working on a game, they blend together a lot in so far as they have some core conceits that are carried all the way through. So it has to feel responsive when you move the thumbstick. Like, just something always has to happen. Every time you press a button, you need a very obvious immediate reaction, so you know what's going on, so it's not obfuscated and you're wondering what's happening. And those rules are kind of global across the game, and then our self-selected rule types for each of the different level varieties, that we just put pressure on that and just polish that as much as possible with play testers.
Yeah, to me that's like the go-to litmus test within 5 seconds. Like, does this feel responsive? Does it feel good? And I personally love that Lucky's moveset carries over to all the different styles. So, it's not like, all of a sudden all he can do is run, or all he can do is, jump. He still has his burrow, and he still has all of the things that you came to know from 3D and 2D, and I thought that was just so well done.
Right, we wanted to keep the focus, when possible, on Lucky and Lucky's moveset. So, like, if you look at the worlds haunting him, there's one level that's kind of like a mini-game collection. There's all these different mini-games you can report. Even the way in which you trigger some of those mini games is always Lucky-centric. So it's not that we go into some UI and start selecting options and stuff. No, like to fire the cannon, for instance, we wanted to connect to Lucky's tail swipe and make that feel really obvious, so that I already know how to control Lucky. I don't have to learn a new game type.
Right.
And that was very important for us.
Yeah, very cool. The Switch is interesting because they now have two pillars with the Switch and the Switch Lite. Did that ever come up during development, even though they're essentially the same console, with one that can play on the TV and one that's portable only? Did you ever have to think of designing for those in different ways at all?
Well, so the Switch Lite came out during the development of New Super, so we didn't even know it existed when we started.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
It was kind of handy developing for the regular Switch because you had two different forms it could take. So I know for instance, the audio guys were very concerned about how it would sound through TV speakers or normal audio video setups versus also the speakers on the Switch itself. So it was kind of a state where we had to kind of look at different use cases and cover all those just for the basic Switch. And then the Switch Lite came out. We're like, well, we've already been balancing to come out of the speakers in a good way. Yeah, like you said, there aren't too many significant hardware differences
Right.
there. So yeah, it was interesting in that it emerged while we were developing, but thankfully it wasn't like, here's this brand new paradigm that now you have to embrace.
Yeah, that would have been pretty crazy 2 months before
That's
the
tough,
release.
especially in the middle of development, because you're already thinking these are the things we're going to include, and every new thing that comes in, new features or new hardware capabilities, is very disruptive to that plan, and you've got to go back and replan it out and probably have less because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Given Mario and sort of his iconic nature and platforming characters across the years, it's very easy for some of these anthropomorphic cartoon characters to be grating or kind of annoying or kind of a turnoff. But I really genuinely liked the creatures in this game. I thought they were very well done, very well written. What was it like creating Lucky and his friends, and what were some of the inspirations maybe behind the worms, the yetis, the very varied creatures?
Well, that was definitely one of our rules: no annoying creatures. But yeah, we look at creatures and Playful itself, we consider ourselves an IP studio. So we like to create worlds and characters, and then we want to cultivate those and have those grow. And ultimately have several different fun brands that we can expand those universes with different games and even different modes and things like that, and different products even outside of games. So we're really excited about all of that world. And so especially when we started digging in more to Lucky, we knew that there were qualities then for us to have an IP that could stand on its own 2 feet and have the bedrock to keep growing. We knew that there were some rules that we wanted to establish that we didn't really want to break, and we believed that those would help us to grow outward versus like painting ourselves into a corner or something like that. So Lucky, it started with Lucky, and it started with developing him as a character. And once we felt like we had a pretty close approximation of what we thought his final form would look like, then that gave us some of the style guide and some of the language for the different creatures. But there were several different rules in there that we had, which was we wanted the bad guys to be cute. They could have been horrifying or scary or something, right? But we wanted them to be cute. We wanted them to you're almost feeling a little bad by squishing them or beating them up, but they're always cute. They're really fun. And that extended to the bad guys, the kitty litter. We wanted them to be a lovable set of villains. We didn't want them to be doing bad for bad's sake, but we wanted them to have their own kind of character arcs and things that they were interested in. And then even into their form, we wanted that to be timeless. And timeless was this key word for us. And to try and approach that, we looked at characters that we thought were timeless in their own way. So we ended up looking at characters like Mickey Mouse very strongly. Of course, Mario. But Mario also has this interesting thing where we grew up with Mario. So if someone were to introduce a Mario character today, it would be a really interesting experiment. Like, would that instantly be a classic, or is it only a classic because it started before, when games were in their infancy in that way? But Mickey is like this really interesting character because he has endured in all these ways. So we tried to break down that character and look at what are the qualities that allows him to endure, whereas like you said, other mascot characters can rise and fall and be forgotten.
Right.
So, we really looked at clean lines, appropriate level of detail, strong silhouettes, strong color branding, all those pieces. And then ultimately, kind of like you mentioned, the litmus test was, but is he cute? And cute more than cool, or cute more than awesome. Like there were other different descriptors you could have for a character, but that was ours. He had to be cute and lovable. And that may have come out of our initial forays. I think it's just something that we really connect with because we think that that's just, as a humankind, we have an appreciation for that sort of stuff. And it is a very embracing sort of style. But we also don't want it to feel generic. We want it to be making a statement with cuteness and with accessibility and with all that fun stuff. And back in the Lucky's Tale days, our example was we wanted Lucky to feel like he was a little stuffed animal in front of you because of that relationship you have to third-person characters in VR, to feel like you can reach out and touch them. And so that helped define some of the qualities that we really liked about Lucky at that time. And I think once we defined that for ourselves, it was easy to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and extend that to the world and to the characters and to the story.
That's super interesting. Yeah, it definitely permeates throughout the game. You can tell that those focuses were definitely hit. Being the franchise director, I'm sure Lucky means quite a lot to you. Maybe your baby in some ways, but he's been now on virtual reality, on the super high-end Xbox One X, on the portable hybrid Switch. When you started this IP, did you ever think that the Little Fox would travel so far in just a couple of years?
It's really humbling to see, I think, the amount of opportunities that we've gotten to showcase this game and to connect with players and to explore his world and expand on it. I think when you create something, as any, I'm sure, story writer or game developer or filmmaker can attest, is the hope is that, because it's a public medium, the hope is that people watch it and enjoy it or have something at least to say about it, that it connects with people on some level. And so obviously that's where we started, is like, well, we're creating this world, we believe it can be all these things. We wanted to make a game that we felt that if someone were to pick it up, much as we picked up, like Mario or Banjo when we were younger, and that became kind of this default, like, wow, this type of game is great, this is my introduction to it, it's how I measure games in a similar genre against, it's what I measure them against. For us, we wanted to try and craft that experience for ourselves and for new players as well. So that was a goal that kept pushing us forward with this. And when we looked at different opportunities in front of us, we said, well, is there an opportunity to connect with more gamers in different ways? And if the answer was yes, then we weighed that really heavily. And we said, well, that's key. As an IP studio, as people who really care about this product, I want to then share it with more and more people and get their feedback and have that opportunity to connect with them on that level through this, I think, really just amazing medium of games, where we can speak very directly to our players through the way that the character controls and the player can express themselves through this thing that we've created. I mean, it's amazing. So I didn't anticipate it, but I did hope for it. I did hope that we could have the opportunity to share Lucky. And so with this release and new Super Lucky's Tale, it's very literally a dream come true for us on the team to be able to share Lucky with even more people who crave this type of entertainment as we do.
Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations for making it all happen. A little more broad stroke, when you're developing a game, when you're working on Lucky or another title, what is sort of your biggest goal? I know in today's day and age, balancing passion and making players smile with the dreaded Metacritic score has got to be tough. So what are some of like the big goals that you set out to achieve?
There were several for this product, and we wanted to do a couple of things. I hinted at this a little bit before, but accessibility, not just as some sort of term that means everything, but we wanted to allow people to play this game in ways that brought the most enjoyment to them. And so to do that, we changed the way that even the core progression, we reimagined the whole thing about the core progression of the game. And we built it in such a way that a player could come in, and like I mentioned earlier, they could go deep into puzzles if they wanted to, if that was really their thing, and they could make meaningful progress in the game by doing that. You do need to beat a certain number of levels to unlock the door, but we wanted that to be very forgiving. And we wanted challenge to feel, let me put it a different way. We wanted, I think, a harder challenge. Like, I think the game actually has challenge, a decent amount of challenge all the way through the core of it, but we wanted hard, really skill testing stuff to be opt-in. So it shouldn't be, I think it's difficult to try and block the entire experience on, well, that one level was just it was just so hard, and I couldn't get past it, and so I'm just done. I don't know what else to do, I'm done. So we wanted to not lead to bottlenecks like that. So generally the player can help shape their own path through the experience, and from what I've seen, people are more than enthusiastic to go back and get all the different pages from the levels and complete all the different levels. And I've seen people keep tweeting at me, I got the 100%, I got it all done. And that's just so exciting for us. But that was the driving force, is I wanted to make sure that this game could be played by a lot of different people, but that didn't mean that everything was at just this very low level. It meant that it was
Sure.
opt-in. So pick what you want to do. And if you want to be challenged, then we've got all of Foxington as a specifically set up as challenge levels. We have getting 100% on all the levels as being opt-in challenge levels as well. And some of those things are pretty tricky. So that was a really important piece for us while we were developing this game, and it was one of our rules.
Very cool. I'm sure that you had to play a lot of Switch to get ready for this. So I'm just curious what some of your favorite Switch games are and some of the ones you're playing now.
Oh yeah, well, Switch is no end of amazing games. I mean, we went. I'm still going deep into Zelda Breath of the Wild. I mean, it means a lot to me because it was such a, I think, revolutionary in a lot of interesting ways. The way that I went to the GDC talk, the director and the art lead, the programming lead on that game, and it was just so inspirational for me as a creative director. I took away so many things from that and immediately tried to implement those in my team. Like, look, like they're so connected in these ways, and this is how they handle problems, and this is how they describe their games. It just was such a neat thing to do, and so for me, playing that game is a really it's just a delight. It's a way for me to unwind. But I play a lot of stuff, and so my other favorites right now are I somehow missed growing up. I never played Grandia, and so I'm playing the re-release on Switch.
Nice.
And it is just delightful. Like the dialogue and the characters are, I mean, to me they set this bar. Like I remember, I think it came out around the same time that Final Fantasy VII did, approximal. And the characters there are just in Grandia are like super deep and interesting without feeling overly verbose or anything. And I'm absolutely adoring my time with it because it's just such a great study in how a character can be just imbued with so much life right away. And you're like, I already love this character. And it's got a great sense of humor too. So I'm really enjoying that. And then I've always loved the old Puzzle Quest game, the original one.
Oh yeah.
I loved it. I played it so much on the DS, and so they re-released it with some new character classes and stuff. And so I'm playing it again for probably like the 20th time. It's ridiculous. I keep playing that game, but I do. I think it's mostly because you can ride a giant rat as a mount, and I think
there you
that's
go.
Underused thing to do.
Very cool. Last but not least, and this is kind of a two-parter. Now, after this much improved version, do you feel like Lucky's Tale has fully been told? And I guess either way, what is next for you and the studio?
Well, for Lucky, we just feel like this is the beginning. Lucky's Tale was a beginning in some other ways for us. It was, I think it's a delightful game, but a lot of our challenges there were about hardware and about VR and about bringing that world to that special medium. So we think it was very successful along all those metrics, but still I didn't feel like we got a really deep look into Lucky or his world. And so this title is our attempt to do that, is to really dive deep and to really have this great intro with this character and Jinx and the kitty litter and all the worlds and the wormholes and the yetis and everybody. This was our moment to take that step and to kind of establish this baseline that we want to use as our baseline for how do we build this franchise up from this game. And I think we set a good bar for ourselves because we're like, okay, this game is really fun. We checked a lot of boxes for ourselves, and it sounds like the community is resonating with that. So for us, I want to find out where our excitement is for whatever comes next in terms of Lucky's world. I don't believe in sequels for sequel's sake. I don't think that we should just say, well, yeah, now we got to just go ahead and make the next one, right? Like, to some degree, you want to think what's next, but I want to get so excited about either some dynamic way that we're going to change that formula or some new thing about Lucky that we're excited. For me, I'm really passionate about exploring Slide and Burrow even more. Like, I just think they're fun, they're really cool, but they're just the barest tip of what I think we can accomplish with that and how they can define your experience in the game. And so once we have some number of those things where we're just like, I just can't even stand that we're not pursuing that right now, that's when I want to get started. Because then the team is passionate not just about making a sequel, which is not a great reason, I think, but about what is the story we're wanting to tell here, the story through mechanic, the story through the literal story. We've got to be just so hot about that, so that way passion drives what's next for us. Independent of that, Playful, we're working on other things too, and there's nothing I can talk about yet, but I think it's a pretty cool project that we're working on currently, and I hope to be able to talk about that more. But yeah, like we said, at Playful, we're interested in all IP, and but we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. So we're just taking our time, and we're making sure. And like I said, when we get, I'm already there, but I want to see it from the team, and I want to see it from. And it's about us spending time listening to our players, really, about how they're engaging with Lucky. And I don't imagine that's too far away, but when we're there, then this team, engaged and passionate, can just make some truly amazing stuff. And that's where I want to be at that time.
I definitely believe it, and I'm glad that we haven't seen the last of Lucky.
I hope not.
I super appreciate you taking your time to talk with us and share the story of this awesome game. It's available now on Switch, both digitally and physically. You guys should check it out. Tons of fun. And for me, like, I loved that I could go and cherry pick which kind of levels I wanted to tackle first. You know, I was trying to get through it a little bit quicker just because I needed to review it, but being able to go through and say, like, okay, I love the 2D levels, so I wanted to target those, and then I'll come back and get some of the 3D a little bit later. That was so cool. And again, I super appreciate that Lucky is lovable and enjoyable. Even if you did make the cats the villains, I still really thoroughly enjoyed all the characters. So,
but they're also the hero. Remember,
they are. Yes. Now I have a whole paradigm
Fox
shift
is
here.
half dog and half cat. Anyway.
There you go. Makes good sense. Well, enjoy your holiday break. I'm sure that it is much appreciated after all the development and craziness. I'm sure that was a lot of work, but thank you again for being here. Thank you everybody for watching. Have a fantastic day, and until next time, Switch Force